Man, what a good looking scooter. It's me, look. So this is the exhibition space. I'll just pan round so you get an idea of where we are. That's where I will be sitting 4 days a week for three weeks. Okay. So because everyone's old and they forget to bring their glasses, there's a couple of visual aids there. So there's a blurb, which is about where it all begins, I suppose. Let's have a look at that. So that's the kind of blurb thing. This is not a themed set. There's 8 of those, but this is not one of them. This is called The Early Years. And some of you may recognise some of those postcards, some of those images. You may not, but this was sort of like when I was making sort of the first ones that got half decent, where I had a photograph on the front and the back was printed as a photograph. And then I just glued the two together and off they went. Put a stamp on them, and then I started, the back part, I started decorating that. I put the airball sticker on and did my own stamps. That's one. There's another nice one up there, that one. And they're, although it's got words on them, they are actually photographs. So they're really cheap to produce. Like, I think at the time it was 27 cents each, that's 54 cents, a stamp for 70 cents, and off they went. They were good. They were the first ones where I didn't actually make them by hand, I got them printed. So that's like where it begins, that's the early years. And then we move on, and we've got the themed sets. But first of all, in amongst the exhibition is there's these blurbs, which sort of like give a context for it, I suppose. What it basically saying is that a photograph's just a photograph, and when you look at it, any meaning is what you put on it from yourself, from your own things. But scattered in amongst all that is things like this. I don't know if you can see that. It's a quote from Humphrey Bogart. So, now this is the first of the themed series, and this is called Country Life. And I'm not going to read every card, they're online so you can go and read them yourself, but these actually go way, way back. I took these pictures in 1984, and in fact that's a long time ago, it's 33 years ago, and I actually had them in one of my old houses as the photograph, and then underneath the photograph within the frame was the words. I hadn't done postcards at that point, but so these are the first ones, and these are taken in Southland. The first time I went down there, I was struck by how many empty buildings there were. I mean, they were everywhere. And you kind of look at them and think, my God, why are all these places empty? And some of them had, like this one here, the house was next door, but there was the garage with an abandoned car in it. And you think, my God, where do these people go? So, and this one, the abandoned house was behind me, and this was across the road. I mean, there were so many of them, and so I started making up stories about what had happened to those houses and those people. So that's Country Life. What we got here? Oh yeah, it's just our words tie things together. Right, we look, then look away. I only came across that recently, and it struck me that it never really occurred to me, like there are so many rules, rules in society about what you can look at and for how long, what you can stare at, like it's rude to stare. Haven't we all heard that a few times? And that never really twigged that when you look at a photograph, you're outside of all those rules. So this is called One Night in Brussels, and it says underneath, this really happened. So these are those pictures that you can stare at as long as you like, whereas you couldn't really stare at a woman's tits for as long as you liked. That would be rude. And also these are things that happen in people's lives that you can't and you don't really talk about them, But they're there, they're a part of it. So that's One Night in Brussels. What we got up here? Oh yeah, there we go. So true, huh? Now this is just this is not part of a theme set, this is just a one-page thing, more about those rules. There's a picture of a naked woman standing there looking at herself in the mirror, and there's a series of questions. Was it a man? Was it a woman? Were they white? Were they black? Who took this picture? Were they from here or some strange place? Did they speak English? Were they rich or poor? Were they a good person or did they do bad things sometimes? What were they thinking? Is there something here I don't understand? Is there something hidden here? Will I get it? How will I know if this is a good photograph? What has she got any clothes on? Am I supposed to look at her nakedness or am I supposed not to? Is this pornography or is it art? What else can it be? And who is this person? And here's some answers. It was a woman, she took the picture, she was white, she was a Jew, she spoke English, she was rich, she was married with children, then she got divorced, she had sex with lots of different people, she took this photograph of herself, she was successful, she was famous, and then she killed herself. And that is a picture of Diane Arbus. If you don't know who that is, just do a Google search for Arbus, A-R-B-U-S, and you will recognise her photographs. Right, so this theme set, this is called War Stories, and it all started with this truck. I went out the back of Whangarei to a place called Cowrie Mountain Road, and I was looking for a fishing spot. And you go down this dirt track for miles and miles and miles, and at the end of it is like a semi-abandoned farm, and this is parked out the back of the farm. And it's an old World War II sort of some kind of electrical gear. I called it a radar trap. But I took a few pictures of it and I went home and I had a look at them. And at the time I was reading about the Blitz in London, how every now and again they would find a body that they didn't think was killed by the bombs, that somebody had been bumped off and somebody had taken the opportunity to, I suppose, knock someone off and think, oh, it'll get covered up in the war, which it generally was. And I've read other things about how the war covers various crimes. Like, war is not just war, it's a time when people can settle old scores under the cover of war. So, but this is a bit like that, but it's a fictional story about, what's it about? It's about a kid, about a young boy whose father commits suicide because his mum's having an affair with a guy, and he's young and he feels powerless and all that stuff. And then he gets a bit older and then the war comes along and he thinks, fuck, I can get that bastard now. And that's what the story is about. Although I think I sent it to some people and I don't think that was too clear. But anyway, there's a link to these sets of postcards online where you can go and read them without me shaking the camera around or my arms shaking from holding it too long. Try and get the glare off of it. You can always pause the video if I move the camera away too quick. And this is one of my favourite little quotes I've found. With an iron fist we shall chase humanity into happiness. I wish my mum had known about that. She certainly chased us into happiness a few times. Now, this series is called True Crime, and it's a series of pictures of dead animals. And what it was when we were in Sweden, there was this pigeon dead on the floor, and I saw it in the morning, and then when we came back in the afternoon it was still there, and the next day we came back and all the rubbish had been swept away, but the pigeon was still there. It actually stayed there for about 3 days, and so I took a picture of it. Put a chalk line around it, you know, like the old bodies where they, you know, the old movies where a dead body was on the ground and put a chalk line around it. And I wrote a crime report about the victim. The victim was found face down on the sidewalk by one Patrick Williams. No purpose being identified as yet. Not much is known about the victim. Inquiries reveal he was known in the area as Birdie and was seen hanging around the main station. Death was a few hours prior and looked to have been a sudden impact with a blunt object. Reports have been noted of the sound of a car speeding from the scene, but cannot be verified. Inquiries are proceeding afoot. And I sent it to my friend Kenny, who probably didn't know what the hell it was. But then I sent him another one, and then another one, and another one. But after 6, it was getting a bit ridiculous. Anyway, you can see this series online. It was just a bit of fun, really, with me and Kenny. And so what is it with photography? Okay, let's have a look at this because it's part of it. Like I said before, you can pause the video if I move this too faster than you can read. And then there's this one. The first time I read this, it really struck me how true it was. And that is so true. Have a little bit of fun up here. Now this series is called The Immigrant. It's about being an immigrant, and I did these and I sent them to lots of people, but I never sent them to any Kiwis because they wouldn't understand. You know, when you're an immigrant, people who are born in the country have no idea what it's like. When you move to a country, you find out what it's like. And I think with all countries, it's not just New Zealand, the people that live there, that were born there, have an idea about their country that is generally not very true, whereas the people that move there find out what the country is like. I mean, that's true for all countries, not just this one. And that's what that series is about. And what we got here, it's the last in that series of blurbs. Here, what have we got? So there's a bit there, that's very wordy, I won't go into that one, it's kind of related but kind of not. I came across this in that process. Delteology, the study and collection of postcards. Now, this series here. This was 2006. Queen Mary Hospital in Hanmer was one of the last residential drug and alcohol treatment centres, and it was shut down by Jenny Shipley, you know, the Minister of Health, on the basis that these people belonged back in the community, not locked up, but they were put in the community with full support, which is actually bollocks. They were just put in the community with virtually no support. I was out there one day at the old Queen Mary Hospital in Hanmer, and you could walk around and have a look through the windows, take pictures. It wasn't vandalised, which was really interesting. And one of the things I put in the blurb there is that when I first came to New Zealand, when I first came to Christchurch, what surprised me was how many people that I knew had actually been there, and some had been there with drinking problems and some had been there with depression, but people told me it's one of those places you could just go for a rest. Unlike every other psychiatric institution I've ever come across, people always talked about it in really warm terms, like it was a nice place. It's called Queen Mary Hospital, and the last one is just really the saying that tagged around the place. When people come out, they'd say, "Now that I'm clean, I say thanks to the Queen." It's a tragedy, really. It was shut down, but you know, like all that stuff, I won't go into it. Yeah, well, this is one. I will put it here, and you probably have to pause the video to see all the words. This is called Friends Reimagined, and these are pictures of my friends, and I've written alternative histories for them. This is my friend Kim, who was a High Court lawyer trying many famous criminal cases, and now he's reimagined as Slasher Gibbs. Dear old Kim, lovely, eh? And this is my friend Ian, who comes out as Brian. This is actually Dame Gillian Whitehead, yep. And she is Li Fang Qiu, the notorious Shanghai smuggler and opium addict. And this is Joyce, reimagined as a grandmother, who is Hinia Terupata. Nice, just a bit of fun really. But also it's about doing portraits, doing a couple of little portraits. Now, buy something. Any postcard for $10 can be sent to you or anyone else. Settle old scores anonymously, or let them know who it came from. Ask the guy at the desk. Now, what you will see in some of these postcards is you can address a postcard to anybody you like. It's Jenny Shipley, look. Jenny Shipley again. Some of those ones behind me are addressed to my ex-wife or my bastard husband. So you can actually send a postcard to someone and they won't know who it's come from unless you make it clear who it's come from. Now, this is the final one in the series. This is called Forbidden Stories. This is probably my favourite out of all of them. And really what it is it started with this one down here. When we're in Germany for my son Max's wedding, we were walking along this place up in the north of Germany, one of the old Nazi strongholds, and there was this a sound show, it's called, where a band would play underneath and the sound would radiate out from there. And I was really struck by it. I mean, it's quite a beautiful piece of work. And the other thing I was struck by in Germany was there are no war memorials. You know, like England, Australia, New Zealand, they have a war memorial in everybody's settlement where someone died. Well, in Germany, I don't think there's a single official war memorial to the World War II dead. And the Germans are they don't want to talk about it, they're filled with shame about it. So I saw this and then I just imagined, Germans went out in the war like they were told to do, just the same as all the English and everybody else did. And they died and no one took any notice of where they died. Like nobody brought their bodies home, they're just scattered all over the place. And so for generations of Germans afterwards, their fathers or their grandfathers went to war and never come back. And they had no idea where they went. So, which I thought was really sad, ordinary people don't start wars, but they get conscripted to go and fight. And that was true for them as much as it was for anybody else. Even though they were bastards and did terrible things, they weren't alone in that either. So that was the start of this idea. Like in Germany, you cannot talk about the war. But it doesn't stop people from lamenting the fact that they love people who went to war and never come back. That was the start of it. You can see these online. This is a building outside of Whangarei that I've been fascinated with ever since I first saw it. It's such a weird building. It looks like a bunker. And there's no clear signs on it as to what its purpose is or who owns it. And this one here is about when I lived at Bergen's flat. This is about burning out the paedophile's caravan. It was actually a paedophile living in a bus. And he went to town one day, and while he was there, they set fire to his bus so he wouldn't come back. It was a very contentious issue because a lot of people weren't convinced he was a paedophile, but a lot of people were. It polarised them, and the people that were said, why take the bloody risk? Let's get rid of him. It's a lovely little one, this one. One of my favourites as well. It's about alternative histories. Not alternative histories for people, this is about some women that I have known in my life. But you can have a look at that one. Once again, buy something. What's this one about? Oh, join in the Shutter Room Collective. And these, I'm going to try and sell some prints. I don't know if they'll sell or not. And they're priced really uniquely. I just figured they'll take them. Most people are honest, they'll pay. There's a red dot there, I haven't sold one, I just run out of framed prints, so I put a red dot as if I had. But that's it really. That's my exhibition of postcards, and there's, like I said, there's images here that I realise go back to 1984, and some of them were only taken a few weeks ago. So there you go. This is Postcards, and I'm Patrick Williams. Bye.